Now I would like to show you how to create a loop. I'm going to go ahead and delete the lens flare layer and also the red ball layer. What we have here is the ball going left, right, left. We know that this keyframe is the same as the first one because we copied and pasted it in the previous lesson. All I have to do now is go to the last keyframe and go back just one frame to the left, in other words, earlier in time than the last keyframe, and I'll click on the previous frame button. And now I'm exactly one frame before the occurrence of the last keyframe, and I'm going to end the work area right here by pressing the letter N. This is now a perfect loop. What is happening is that because the first keyframe is identical to the last keyframe, if this were a loop, then we would have two frames that would be identical. We do not want that because that would mean a slight hesitation in the motion of our ball. That's why we end the animation or the work area one frame before the last keyframe so that when it goes back to the beginning, in other words, when it loops, it's going to be a perfectly seamless loop. Let's go ahead and preview this. As you can see, it's looping pretty seamlessly. Another thing that I would like to mention is this. If you would like to speed up this animation, you could click on the word position to select all of the keyframes, and now press and hold the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows, and click and drag either the last or the first keyframe, and proportionally all of these keyframes are becoming slower or faster depending on where we are dragging. If we were not holding the modifying key, which is Option or Alt, and we click and drag, then what we're doing is that we are changing the time position of these keyframes and not necessarily making them faster or slower. If you start moving the keyframes and you press and hold the Shift key, these keyframes will snap to either the CTI, the end of the work area, or the beginning of the work area. So it becomes really easy to position these. Now I'm going to move the CTI to the last keyframe. I'm going to go back just one frame and I'm going to end the work area now by pressing the letter N. Now let's go ahead and preview it. And it's still a seamless loop, but it's moving much faster. Now I would like to create a more realistic bouncing ball. Let me go ahead and delete these position keyframes and let me create new ones. I'm going to start with it here. And now I'm going to move the anchor point all the way to the bottom of the layer. For that, I'm going to use the Pan Behind tool, which is this one right here. Or you can also use the shortcut for it, which is the letter Y. Go ahead and move the anchor point. There you go. The reason why I'm doing this is because when the ball bounces, when it hits the floor, it actually gets deformed. It gets flattened ever so slightly. And when it goes back up, basically it expands itself to its original scale. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the selection tool, and being that this is going to start at the bottom, I'm going to make it a little bit flat. So I'm going to keyframe both position and scale. Position is already showing, so I'm going to press Shift S to also show scale, and I'm going to keyframe both of them. I'll move a little bit to the right. I'm still going to keyframe position and scale, but I'm going to change the scale back to normal. To change the scale back to the default scale, all I have to do is right-click the property and choose Reset. As you can see, the position is not changing, but the scale is. I'll move a little bit in time, and I'm going to change the position of the ball so that it goes up. I'll change the work area bar a little bit so that it becomes a little bit longer. And now I'm going to copy the position and paste it, and the scale, and paste it. I'll move a little bit in time, and I'll copy the scale again for when the ball was a little bit flattened. And there you go. All I have to do now is move back just one frame and end my work area there. The shortcut for that is the letter N. Let's go ahead and preview that. And it's not too bad. The only thing we have to do now is play with the temporal interpolation. For that, I'm going to select all of the keyframes for position. I'll right-click just one of them, go to Keyframe Interpolation, and change the temporal interpolation to Continuous Bezier. Click OK, and now let's go to the graph editor. Starts at the bottom, and it goes up. As it goes up, it should decelerate. So, this particular keyframe should be lower than the predecessor. And I'll just move these ones a little bit higher here. And let's preview this. And we can make it even more dramatic. Let's move this much higher up. And this one as well. And that's much, much better.